No, no, no. We were the first ones to get like the second.
Network security, visualization. Sometimes I. Which other like?
There is Austin JS. Software office.
Supposed to be yesterday. Oh,
Yeah,
they also have a remix server.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yes, it's now that way. Remix, yeah, it's a not a framework. It's a React, it's a React framework, not it's getting a lot of hype. When I saw the top, I'm like, we're using this, right? Actually, oh, wait, you use not Tamagui. Oh,
I don't know. I think there's two talks.
oh, there's
Or we're supposed to be two talks. It might be a second.
I mean, like, finance stuff much easier. Yeah, it doesn't.
I don't know.
What's that?
Yeah.
Where do you work? What's your plan?
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, right now. I also did a little bit of code. Mostly.
Yeah, I'm doing full stack.
We also use like JS. We do like defense critical infrastructure. Our plan is like.com. Spatial and geospatial. With a team.
It's fine. So anything. Yeah. Sure. No, I get it. Yeah, we got this is something like 2 years ago, and we had 12 inches. And then we decided to do it.
No.
Yeah, like still in the identity space, but like offer like different problems. So different problems. Yeah. And we let go like half of it. There's only like 6 of us. And we have what, now 10 months of running it. We don't know if we're going to. We have some plans to try to become profitable and more sustainable. We're still not sure if we're going to try to burn more cash now and then get educated to get a product.
Yeah, right now.
Self-identity. Austin puts the joint to the video. How do you edit the space? It should be on the
Oh, sorry about that. Just really quick, anyone need a parking pass for downstairs? Let's get that out of the way. I'll start over here and just like pass it around.
Who needs a parking pass?
Parking pass, coming right at you. All right, thanks everyone for showing up tonight. I know it's a little chilly. Austin being the desert, we're all afraid of the cold. We have a special guest tonight coming out from Tampa, Florida, which, oh, that's it. Are we good? Parking passes, which I'll introduce shortly. First off, let's just kick it off. Thanks for coming back. 2025, our first event of the year, and we'll see how it progresses. Capital Factory, right? They sponsor the space. Space is very expensive. I went shopping November, December for space. Not cheap. So big shout out to Capital Factory for helping us out. CapitalFactory.com, if you want to be a membership, it's really great. You get access to their network. It is a startup ecosystem, but also they have a lot of job opportunities for developers. Again, startup ecosystem, very strong with the tech here in Austin, Texas. Sponsoring tonight, so I run a company called Web Fountain. It's a consultancy. Been doing it for a couple of years. We specialize in data API management. If your company or you know anyone that needs a consultant, come in and just knock it out of the water, let me know. I specialize in Nx, Node, Postgres, and Kubernetes. All right, the Meetup React parking validation we just did. Speakers and sponsors, right? If you want to speak, please get in contact with me. Either tweets, email me, or if you go to the reactatx.org, there's a form that you can fill out. Check it out. And always looking for sponsors. So if you have a sponsor, your company wants a sponsor, you personally, feel free to, again, message me, and we'll set that up. I can walk you through the process. There is community. All the ideas coming out is from you guys, right? So Eugene, that's how he found me online. We chatted, and here he is from Florida, right? So don't be afraid to give a presentation. It could be any topic, right? The React ecosystem is large. Front-end development is large. If you're really interested in something, want to learn, you want to showcase it, feel free to reach out. I'm here to help you guys. Afterwards, yay, after the presentations, let's keep the conversation going. We're just gonna walk downstairs. There's a bar right here in the hotel, and the first round is on me, is on the React ATX Meetup. Stick around, let's chat, let's talk about whatever tech you want, whatever's on your mind. All right, so don't go away, so we can hang out for at least another hour or so downstairs. Also, if you do have questions for our speaker tonight, I guess, just hold them. You can always ask them downstairs. A new policy from Capital Factory is we have to be out of the room by 8 o'clock. So that means 8 o'clock, everyone has to be out. So 7:40, around this time, we'll be stopping everything and walking out. We don't want to lose this space. So if I can get some volunteers when we're done to just help put back the chairs and a couple tables, that'd be great. And always, just pick up the trash. We have to leave the room as is, clean. And so if you see anything that's out of order, let me know, help out. keep Capital Factory happy, and keep this meetup going. Without further ado, Eugene, we're going to talk about some Tamagui and some NX monorepos. You know, round of applause.
Thank you.
There's
The mic. I can do it with the
Mike. Just howling in the head.
yeah, because all right. Honestly, I thought that I will arrive here and I will say like it's much more hotter than in not colder than in Florida right now. But no, it's actually warmer, and that's really good. So, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm working with the Monorepos for the past 7 years, occasionally, not on the like full-time always, because as you know, Monorepos or even Tamagui, it's not for every project. Every project has different kind of decision makers, even different concepts, thought. Imagine that Tamagui is something which allows you to connect mobile and web, but only if you need it. And one disclaimer. When you try to understand the Tamagui, and actually I'm seeing it with the developers which are working in my team, like I'm leading the team, this is the first impression. Like everything is interconnected. You're reading about one thing, and you need to read about another thing, and then on the third thing, and then on the fourth thing. And sometimes it pisses me off because you need to understand everything at the same time to write high quality code. That's good from the one perspective because you need to prepare yourself. From other perspective, you're actually feeling that you're wasting your time because you're starting to do something, and after a couple days you're realizing that it's not how Tamagui should work or expected to work. So start slow. If you wanted to take a look on the Tamagui, play with it, start slow, give yourself a time to understand even this is like a framework. You can treat it as a framework, not as a tool. So it's much more bigger from my perspective than the React, for example. It's by itself. It has some rules, it has internal vision how something should build, and if you start trying to build something which is not matched with the vision of Tamagui, you're starting to feel the pain. And I don't like to feel it, but honestly, I felt it a lot for the past 6 months where I'm very actively working with it, with Tamagui. So my opinion about the Tamagui, so it's opinionated, but it's flexible. And honestly, when I'm looking at the project, on the frameworks or the solutions, when they are flexible, for me, it means the hell, especially if you're working on the project, not a solo project. If you have other people and they're on the same way, like they don't know Tamagui and they need to learn it. So you need to bring the vision about the Tamagui to them, explain, review the code, and grow the knowledge inside your team or even outside of the team. Depends on how your company is actually like separated on the pods or on the teams. So again, when I'm hearing flexibility, for me, it's the same as a synonym for the word how, because I will see the code which will be implemented 3-4 different ways, and for some reason it should exist in the same repo, and I need to manage this code, and I need to review this code, and I need to explain to people that no, that's not a good idea, how you should do it and why. But at the same time, they're asking me, but Tamagui allows you to do it. So it's kind of hard. I don't like to have a positive picture about any kind of technology. I'm trying to be very pragmatic. So if you will take a look on the Tamagui, you should understand that you have a React, then it's the Pi, it's the React Native. Then Tamagui use React Native Web and the Tamagui itself. For the Expo, and you can use like a pure React Native, and for the Expo and Expo Web. But at the same time, when you're building, you are able to use different kind of engines to build it. You have Webpack, you have Vite, you have Metro, and at the same time, on top of it, you can use an Next.js. So imagine starting with this and thinking like, okay, I will take a use in the Webpack, and Webpack is just like a plugin, and the Vite is a plugin, and it works kind of differently. You need to configure it differently. You have a different kind of issues, and you need to understand how to solve them. You need to understand that on the nearest floor, on the basement, you have a TypeScript, and sometimes you're just sitting and trying to understand. So I have an issue that some of the files were not included in the final build. Why? Because of the Babel, because of the Webpack, because of the Metro, because of the Next.js or TypeScript. So it's kind of chaotic, and you need to deal with this. You need to like handshake with each component and think about it. This is the price of having Tamagui as your platform for the development. So Tamagui has, it's not just an engine for how it treads the code. It has based internal components which you can use out of the box, because it's a unified platform, and the code will be, let's name, like converted to the React Native code or to the web code, again through the React Native web. You have the concept which is a little bit different. So you have an X stack, Y stack, Z stack for building vertical, horizontal, or like layered views. You have the same concept as the headers and the paragraphs. You have text and sizable text. And it's when you're starting to seeing it, it's already a question: where and when should I use like H1? In the mobile development right now, in the React Native, there is no H1. And how it will be converted, in which specific tag it will be converted. Well, okay, on the mobile side, it will be text. What it will be on the web? H1, hopefully. But for example, Expo Web converts some of the tags to the P tag, and you're expecting to have a header, but it's just a P. And for the SEO optimization, it sucks. Then it has a bunch of existed components for the buttons, for the checkbox, so for the forms, ready groups, switches, toggle groups. And honestly, you should use it. So this is the components which you will use, and your code will be based on it. And the philosophy of the Tamagui, you are not moving out of the components which Tamagui allows you to use it. You can extend, you can adapt your code for the web specifically, for the React Native, but it's not a good practice, because the more customized code you have, the harder is to support it in the future. They have the dialogues, popovers, shits, tooltips, accordion, avatars, cards, image. Definitely, right now, it's not possible to review each of the component, and it's not worth it. If you want it, you will go there and try to read the documentation. There is a gradient system. There is, and again, the concept: square and circle. Why not triangle? Why there is no triangle? And there is a like unsorted amount of components which are not somehow not grouped. It's just like an other anchor, section, scroll view, spinner, and space, or visually hidden, which, for example, on the mobile, on the React Native, it's a different kind. There is no such thing as visually hidden. So again, try right now to imagine that we have a puzzle and I'm putting missing pieces. Right now, step by step, I'm trying to move this circle of pieces. So by the end of my talk, hopefully, you will have the whole picture and in the center, the vision of the Tamagui. Everything starts from the configuration. You're creating like the huge configuration part which controls the whole application, where you can configure your fonts, your animations, your themes, your tokens. Design token system is very actively developed with Tamagui. Media, again, right now, I will try to explain each of these sections separately. And how you will use it, you're actually creating it in a separate file. It's better to have it in a separate file. And actually, on my projects, I'm breaking it even lower. I have a phones configuration file, animation configuration file, because the code is bloating. And then you have only one provider, which you're actually using it and wrap all of your code with a Tamagui provider. There is several parameters which you can use, and the major one is the config, and you're passing this config. It can be dynamically changed in the future when you needed it, but major part is doing like this. Now the breakpoints. So when we're talking about unified platform and unified code, that means your code works on the mobile native mobile, so like React Native. At the same time, your application can be opened on the web, in the browser, in the size of the mobile, or from the mobile phone in the browser. And you need to think about it, and if you talk with your designers or with other developers, you should explain them the concept that the size of the screens here is universal, but for example, you will not see large screen on the mobile. Or maybe you will not support medium screen, and you will not support tablets or iPad. Breakpoints are not something which is fixed. It's not how Tamagui says you need to do it, like, and name it like small, medium, like SM, MD, LG, XLG. You can name it as you want it. So you can actually name it small, medium, large, 2x large, 3x large. It doesn't matter. One of the things which are meta is the order. So when you're creating the media, so the media is actually is responsible for the definition of your breakpoints. Then when you're adapting your design, you're using these breakpoints in a smart way to switch the view and in the specific places. So here I'm defining 3 media breakpoints. Again, it can be more, depends on your design or how you go with the designers when they are saying, we will have 5 breakpoints. I'm always trying to convince them, we will have 3, that's enough. The size doesn't matter, absolutely doesn't matter. This is the breakpoints from the general like practices. Then now Tamagui starts working like this. You can create something like greater than small. Again, you should not name it as it is, but it's just a general practice how Tamagui say, let's use it as we are showing you. And you're saying that if everything has more than, like for example 880 plus 1 is very important, because otherwise you're not breaking the checks and it will not work. You need to increase in 1 pixel to have a step. Greater than the medium, greater than the large. And you can manipulate in the code. In the code, you can say, this specific element will be visible only for the small screens, or this specific element will be visible for all screens which are greater than medium size. So it's very flexible. On the left, I left the code how we're defining the media. On the right, this is the horizontal stack which I talked about. So we have. This is the first time I'm totally understand that you're first time looking at the Tamagui code, but you're creating the horizontal stack of the buttons, or one button, doesn't matter. No, you're setting the background color. You can do it through the styling. It depends. As I said, Tamagui is very flexible. But for our example, that's enough. We have a background with the some color, and we have sets of rules which says if it's greater than small screen, then the background will be blue. If it's greater than middle, then green. So we should not, as you can see, write something about large screen greater than large screen. The Tamagui will fully understand this code and analyze it. The Tamagui analyzes everything which you pass with a $sign as a property and as the value of the properties, which we will see later. And here, as I said, like it will be switch our background depends on the size of the screen. Now, the components, like the very basic example of the components which we can use. So I took the sign up form as an example, and what we can see here. I'm using the vertical stack. I'm passing the parameters like width, max width, margin. Actually, all the parameters are the same as any style settings, any React Native styles. You can pass here the border radius. It has the whole set. I don't like actually to pass the all styles as it is, as through the properties. It makes no sense. But again, that's the part how Tamagui works, and that's what I told you at the beginning. It's flexible. It's flexible, but at the same time opinionated. Then we're pressing it, let's get back to our code. We have a text label. It's a Tamagui text label, do not forget it. We have labels from Tamagui, HTML4, very usual for the HTML forms, but at the same time it will be ignored for the React Native. We have an input with a placeholder, with the value, we can control it. So the whole experience is pretty much the same if we look on this code as we have right now with React Native or partially with HTML. And on the right you see fully unstyled, very basic form. So there is no default styling in Tamagui which applied like from out of box. Now, let's talk about the customization. So as I show you, we are passing all the styling as a properties. We have a font width, we have a text align, and as I said before, that sucks. So styled is not a new. We have a styled component. We have different ways, like Anima framework, if I can recall it correctly, which another framework for styled components. But here the concept is the same. You're wrapping your component, the Tamagui component, label component, with the styled method, and then passing the styles inside. But as you can see, you're starting to see the magic, the $signs, the money. So, and $sign says the color is label color. What's the label color? Or hover style, color, label color, hover. There is no such thing in any styles as hover style. This is the concept from the Tamagui itself. And it allows you to have a press style, to have a hover style, which then will be converted properly to the HTML and CSS for the web and for the React Native itself. Then how to define the style label. Usually we're creating like style component, then creating the style label, and just using like basic properties. And here I try to replicate the same label as we saw on the previous screen. So I have HTML4 and the children, and I'm just passing it directly. Definitely we can do it much more harder way. We can use the whole set of TypeScript rules, the whole things which TypeScript allow you to do, and pass it down. But I'm trying to keep it very simple. On the right side, you can see that we are creating, this is the part of the create Tamagui method calls. We have a tokens. Tokens, you can read it as a design token system. So maybe you have experience before, maybe not, but for the past years and years, the experienced designers, especially if it's possible in the project, and project is not something which lives for the year and has the vision of living for the several years, 5 years, they're creating design token systems, and they can be very complex. For example, if you will read how Adobe creates the design system, there is a like tier system. One tier system when you have sets of colors. So you're naming it like red, green, and the sum of the like light green. There is second tier system when you're starting to say, oh, so we can name tiers like a hover color or disabled color. 3-tier system is when you're starting to name the specific styles for the components. So if it's a button, you will see button background for the hover, input hover style for the background. So it depends. It can be much more complex. So Amazon, Adobe has, if I can recall it correctly, like 5-tier systems, and it's even the name of the token is so long. So in our token system, we have colors. This thing is required. So size, space, color is the thing which Tamagui requires to define from you, and you're not able to name it like colors or sizes because it's trying to search by this specific name. Then you define like label color, hover, and passing the specific color. And Tamagui knows that it should try to search for the color tokens in the color section, and the specific name match the property name. And we're doing it through the dollar. First of all, I should say that sometimes if you don't have, with the Tamagui, it's very, very hard to work in any kind of IDE which not trying to help you to actually write the code. I even will not try to convince you to use something like Sublime without anything, because imagine trying to find the dollar which should match the color. You should definitely use some kind of plugins or any kind of extensions which open source community created to support Tamagui syntaxes, because if you will see in the next slides, it becomes much more complex. Then, if you want to create the custom button, now we're talking. You are using the Tamagui button, but take a look. The first property, press theme. So we're saying like, yeah, we are actually supporting the themes for the press, and you should take a look and find it in our styles. And then we have variants. Variants, it's again, this is what styles have. The Tamagui expects you to use the variants. In my case, button can be primary, secondary, any kind of the button, piled, piled, and for each variant, we have it's very not very unusual. You're reading the code variance, then variant, then primary. So variance is something is global. Variant is the property which I will pass to the button explicitly. And then we are setting the property variant can be primary. The value will be primary. That means that all sets of rules should be applied. So for the primary, we will have the background color, and now we are seeing again the $sign. So it will try to find the token with the name of primary background color in the set of the colors inside the tokens, and match it and pass the value here. Border color. And now there is, as I said, something custom for the Tamagui. Hover style, press style, disabled style. And you can use it, and it will understand it, and it will apply it depending on the state. Because button is already have the property disabled. It's Tamagui disabled, and it knows that you need to Tamagui needs to apply disabled styles if disabled is true. Same as the press style, same as the hover. Again, on the mobile there is no such thing as hover, so there will be no code which will go to the React Native which is related to hover. Only press and disabled. Yeah. I have the same rules as I said for the secondary, so we can have the same match of the fields. We can skip, for example, press style, and nothing happens. There will be no exception, nothing. It will be fully okay. You will just miss the styles, and it will not be like if you have a background color for the press style which is green, and you're not passing the style, you will not have the green button. You can create you can name the variants as you want it. So I have, for example, sets of my buttons, for example, in one project have 5 or 6 variants. Primary, secondary, toggled, elevated. But you can start seeing a different thing. If we'll go back, primary have the styles. But now we are seeing elevated and toggled as true, and there is and you can actually pass true and false. You can pass only true. You can pass only false, and that means that for the variant, if it's primary, it should be like a string. If it's toggled, I can pass it toggled equals true, and it will understand if it's true, I need to use background color, like say red, or border color green. Same as for elevated. With the elevated is a bit more complicated, because elevated for the web and for the React Native is different. So I can use native Tamagui is web method and just check it and adapt the configuration how I need it. How I should use it on the right. So as I said, button variant primary, but at the same time it's elevated. So it's a combination of variants, and one overrides another one, depends on the order. Same as a button variant secondary, toggled. And again, first the variant secondary will be applied, all styles from the second variant will be applied, then on the toggled. And usually you are not overriding the styles, but it can be. Now, there is another thing. So imagine that you want to have a different size of the button. In my project, again, like one of the biggest which I'm working right now, has 4 sizes. I try to simplify it to 3, and we have large, medium, and small. You can define sizes as the property here in the style. So it's everything which I'm explaining right now happens in this styled configuration. So we can define size and say that if it's large, if we're setting size equals large, you will have font size, padding, and height as large. it will go to the tokens, it will find size which is equals large, and will try to use the value of this token. Same as for the middle size, same as for the small size. Alternatively, as you can see, this is spaghetti code. You will set a lot of such kind of code in your code base, but it's a bad practice. If it's possible, you need to talk with your design team and say, look, if we can use and define font size as large and padding as large and use it as one concept, because first when in this project, when the design team tried to implement the design token system, our buttons look like this. Large as a configuration for the Tamagui, but font size was extra large from the design token system. Paddings was medium. Height, again, extra large. So each button used different design tokens, and it was messy. And I tried to talk with the design team, explain them how we should unify the sizing, the paddings and everything, the font size, the paddings, the which we have the Z index size to the one unified system, and then I can do what? I can use again, this is the Tamagui thing, 3 dots size, and then extract the size which was passed, go to and pass it in the lower level on the font size. So I have global fonts. I'm reading the font from it and using the size. I'm reading the paddings and using the size as a value from the property collection. So it's much more easier to read this code, to use this code on the right than on the left, for me, after some experience using of Tamagui. Then it can be even much more harder, for a much more complex solution. So this is the custom size text, not which Tamagui has, it's my custom size text. We have a variance, and we are passing the size there. And we have like a medium. So if I'm passing $MD, so that means the medium size, to the size property of my component, as you can see, MD with the dollar inside a markup. We can define rules which will say like, okay, font size is medium. Now, if your screen size is greater than medium, use the font size from the medium. If it's, now you can see one of the greater than 2XL, like two extra large sizes, the font size will be large. Full flexibility. But again, when you start reading this code, it's so hard from on the beginning. I can say that I will start to adopt for like just to read the Tamagui after couple months. When I'm seeing the code, I can understand how it's working and what it's doing. But again, in the team, you need to define what you will use. If you will try to use everything which Tamagui allows you, it will be a mess, because you should apply some standards inside your team. Even write it down in somewhere in your repo, like how we should implement like a sizing or something else. Now, shorthands. This is the concept which, again, Tamagui brings to you. There is a predefined amount of shorthands, actually all the styles. And this is on the left, I just took it from the source code. And you're passing it to the create Tamagui. It's not a required thing. You can have a custom shorthands. But again, take a look on the right. You can see this code like BR, BBBRR, AI, what it is. So BR is, we can find it on the left, it's the border radius. BBRR is the border bottom radius, something like that. AI it's align items. Actually, when I saw that developers in my teams started using it, I said, do not do it anymore. Like, stop, because it's almost impossible to remember all the shorthands. I guess it's kind of cool to have such kind of feature when you can create your custom shorthand and then apply some rules for that. But using the whole style set is a bad idea, and we are not using it. But Tamagui allows you to do it. This what I talked about previously, the design token system. You can find a bit messy the order what I explained you with the Tamagui, but I try to recreate the same mess in my head at the same order which I try to find how Tamagui is working. And I guess you will experience the same. Next topic is not actually connected to the previous one directly, but at the same time you need to understand it. And what should I explain you first? Design tokens or how Tamagui applied the design tokens? So yeah, tier 1 system, as I said, just the plain name of the color, like color pink, color red. Then the tier 2 system is aliases. You're creating aliases. So this is for the body color, the font for the body medium. This is the background for muted color. The 3-tier system is when you're trying to speak about components token specifically, beige color, background, medium. So you're actually defining your token, like explaining where you are using it. It should be applied on for example, on the Figma side. Right now, Figma has quite a good support for the design token system, especially from the last year. And the same should be applied. You need to export your design token system from Figma to your code, and you can do it different kind of ways. You can use open source plugins. You can write your own plugin and customize and how you read this. Now it becomes even more complex. This thing actually, I'm not able to say that I 100% understand from the Tamagui perspective. They created how they call the natural way of the tokens. So this is supported with the Z-index, sizes, and spaces. So you can use numbers, and the bigger number, the more space or the size is for the value. And take a look deeper. You can use not only like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can use 0.25, 0.5. Luckily, there is no such thing as 0.6. So there is some rules which you can apply. And when you're manipulating with the size, somewhere in the code, you can say increase in 2, and the size will be increased in the component for 2. So if you have a base of the $2 plus 2 will be 4. So it will automatically apply 44 pixels for your size. But honestly, imagine that you're starting working on the project, and the first thing which you're seeing is the width of the padding. The padding of the components equals $3. What's the size? It's small or not? How small it is? How big it is? What's the maximum? So they're explaining that you can use somewhere like the grid system from 1 to 10, 1 to 16, somewhere like that. They're not limiting you. They're not saying how many numbers you should use. That doesn't mean that you should use 1, 2, 3. You can use 1, 3, 5. It depends on you. How do you scale? How do you scale your sizes? So it's a bit tricky. Again, this code, this value is $2, $3. will and can be applied to this size. So inside the BR, you can use $2, and it automatically creates the background, the border radius. It will go to the tokens, to the size of the tokens, and we'll find the $2 and we'll say, okay, so in the space $2 is 7 pixels, so the border radius is 7 pixels. Not very obvious, very hard. I said to my devs, do not use it. Try to skip it, just use like small, large, it's much more easier to understand. Now, animations. So this is another topic. Animations. First thing when I speak with the designers, they're always asking me, can we do animations? And I'm always says, let's start with the plain design system, and then we will try to apply the animations, like complex animation, or at least the simplest one. So you can animate any style of the property, and you can animate across all the states. Animation depends on the media queries, on hover, on press. There are 3 drivers for the animation. So this means you can animate with the CSS, you can animate with the React Native. Definitely there is no such thing as CSS animation on the mobile, but they are applying CSS animation for the web and React Native animation for the mobile. React Native animation, they are wrapping the reanimated library, actually. They're adding some extras and wrapping it. And you have a 3rd driver, which is Moti, and you can use Moti animation. It's fully safe for the server-side rendering, and you have even such things as enter and exit animations. But it's not very usual, and you need to wrap it with the animate presence component we'll see a bit later. So I honestly just stealing this animation from the official website, but how do you do it? So you have a square. If you can remember the 3rd slide about the components which they have, we can define the square, and there are 3 things which is important for this specific example. Animation property, which we are setting to bouncy, and there are definitely other animation types, and we are changing it. We're changing the scale on the hover style and on the press style. Tamagui understand that the basic scale is 1, and they have presets of how fast it can animate or should animate, and you just use it using this time frame. And this is just because, as you can see, like I'm hovering, I'm pressing, and it's changed. There is an enter style animation. So when the component is mounted to our tree, component tree, it will apply the enter style animation. And here we are using like scale. We're changing the position of the element vertically, and we're changing the opacity. And it's actually understand that the opacity it can be 0 and 1 and something in the middle. And it's understand that, for example, during the exit you can move opacity to the 0. Now, how to leave this scene? So, as we are not able to fully control the removing, when we are removing the element from our component tree, they actually took the concept of animate presence, I forgot from where, and you're wrapping your element inside the animate presence and then setting the exit style to the component which you're actually animating. So without an animated presence wrapper, exit style will not work. Yeah, as you can see, enter style is 0, exit style opacity is 0. And there is no configuration which says opacity is 1, because Tamagui understand that if the element is visible, opacity is 1 and equals 1. Fonts. Fonts on the mobile, on the React Native, and on the web works differently. So there was no way to unify it perfectly. So from this example, you can see that we first of all we need to create the font. We can operate different fonts at the same time. That's why there is a create fonts the method. You're passing the family for the web, the sizes, the weight, and the face. Face is actually for the mobile. And you're attaching that 400 is regular, 600 is a semi. Tamagui is not working with the phones. It's in the terms of it's not loading the phones inside or inside the memory. You should load these phones as an extra step. If you're using Expo, use Expo Phones Library. So it's up to you how you actually preload or load the phones in your mobile application. And then you're using like a text and passing like, okay, so text font size 5 and line height 1. If you will go back, we'll see that the size, the font size 5 is 22. The line height 1 is, I didn't pass it here. I didn't show it, sorry. But the font family is Roboto, the same which I name it like Roboto. And the color is white, which we define somewhere else. The next thing is themes. So a lot of right now application has light theme and dark theme. You can create any other themes as more as you like, but here is kind of different. And one of the things which I need to warn you, if you have any thought, if you are thinking about having a themes, not right now, but in the future, you should start from the theme number 1. It can be only 1, but you will spend less time in the future trying to migrate from like a simple colored configuration to the theme configuration. As you can see, you are using the same create Tamagui method and passing the themes. Light, dark, the colors inside should be passed and named in the one way. This is the very simple way how you can work with the themes. If you will go deeper to inside of the documentation, the naming convention, how Tamagui is actually trying to look and find the keys for the themes, how you can make it even complex, much more complex. You should definitely read the documentation. And then inside a Tamagui provider, you can pass the default theme. So I'm passing it's light. But at the same time, on the same page, you can use and wrap your component inside the theme wrapper and said like this specific button will use dark theme. This button will use pink theme. And I don't know why, but on the same page, you can have different components with the different rules, with the different color sets from the different themes. Now, we talked about like UI stuff which Tamagui allows you. This is about 50% of the thing which can be described during this talk, during this topic. If you want to have like 50% more of the knowledge, go to the documentation. And I should warn you, Tamagui is kind of in an active development. A year ago, documentation sucked so badly, you're not able to understand it. It looked more like the developers are adding the notes for themselves instead of explaining to other people. But it's an open source. I'm not able to blame them. It's free, and who am I to blame them? If I can find any issue, I can create the pull request and change it. So, Tamagui static. Static, it's the engine which optimize your code, extracting the CSS, optimizing it, and place it on the page. That's why, for example, it's so hard to test. For example, if you want to test your UI with the snapshots, especially trying to get the final results for the HTML, it's so difficult because styling is grouping. The styles are having like a tree shaking mechanism, the same way as with the React tries to apply to the trees, and it becomes very hard to understand how it's working. Honestly, when I'm trying to go to the Tamagui source code, it's almost impossible to read it. Maybe you will be able. You'll be a lucky guy, but it's smart. But it's very hard to navigate inside a code base, just because it's fully TypeScript. But at the same time, you have a wrapper, you have a fabric creation and something else, and you need to go to the other file. And to understand even the optimization techniques, I'm just reading the documentation, and honestly, I'm just saying like, okay, Tamagui was created by the smart guys. I'm trusting them. They're removing a lot of the styles from the inline styles, and creating the classes which has the groups of the styles, and they are using actually CSS variables inside of them. They are, as I said, like they're flattering the expensive style components. They evaluating use media and use theme hooks. There is a hooks which you can use, not just the components, but the hooks for the theme, for the media, and trying to combine as much as possible of the techniques just to optimize your code. So on the output, you will have as much optimization as possible. It's not just a dump like transpilation as it is. It's a bunch of the optimization. So for example, this is the code which we are creating. So we're creating the view with the settings like width is 550. If it's greater than small, then apply some of the size. There is a heading with the size, and the size depends of the property with the name big. And if it's big, I'm applying large size. And again, it's from the tokens. If it's not big, it's small. And the output for the CSS and the HTML will look something like this. So you're not able to manipulate actually with the name of the classes or expect that they will be static. Nope. It's up to them. Change the class name, change the logic inside of it, how they're like grouping as I said, the styles. It's the thing which you will need to trust to Tamagui and move this like it's Tamagui. It's them, not us. This is GS side. This is CSS side, and as you can see, we have the media queries, the CSS variables. So it's not a one-to-one. It's a complex, it's dynamic. Honestly, as I said, it's hard for me to read this kind of code, to understand. That's why it's one of the things which adds the complexity. It's not a Redux where you can go and read the source code and understand. It's my personal feeling. Now we are going to the final stage, to the pros and cons. So the pros is Tamagui actually provides the very cool cross-platform components which you can use. They're not limited. I actually personally didn't feel that I'm limited with Tamagui with their components. I can do whatever I need, and if I feel that I need something more, actually I'm starting to speak with the designers or developers and try to find the way how we are simplifying the code. And it's actually works good with our code base. As you saw from the last couple slides, it's fully focused on the optimization, and it's really not a kid stuff. It allows you to work with the themes, playing with the themes. Again, as I said, the thing which I showed you is just a 50% how they can work with it. You can replace the themes dynamically, just saying like, no, this theme is no more in the memory, just replace everything. The productivity. From the whole of my talk, I am talking about how complex Tamagui, how hard it is actually to use Tamagui, especially for the first couple months. But at the same time, when you are adapting to Tamagui, you're actually starting to use like a it feels like it's a separate language. It feels like now it's something like more than TypeScript. And like VS Code has plugins which, for example, already supports the shorthands. So you're actually feeling that you're using the different language is something new. But imagine that you need to find the new people in your team, and your product is fully on top of Tamagui. This is the cons. It fully supports TypeScript, really, from the beginning. It's a nice, very well maintained TypeScript code, which is very cool to read, but it's not something easy to understand. The cons, as I said, the learning curve. It's huge. It's slow. You should not expect from yourself or other developers that they will learn it very fast. I had an experiment and tried to gather my devs. I have a team of 4 or 5 devs, and they're separated on the pods. And I gave them a week and said, just play around. I didn't check anything. We just meet each day and just talk about Tamagui. I didn't require them to do something specific. And each of them find a different way how to do the same thing. Now imagine I will ask them to create the components. And Johnny is working on the text label, and Bob is working on the button label, and the result from the code base is completely different. So you need to expect that. You should understand that Tamagui is actually opinionated, and there is some rules for them. And if you, as I said in the beginning, if you try to go and pass those rules or avoid it, you will pay the price. And the flexibility, as I said before, right now can lead to inconsistency in patterns. So you should create some kind of document where you will explain which type of patterns you use, Tamagui patterns, and even create the examples. I didn't do it so far, but I worked on other things, like a storybook, for example. And your team should align. Otherwise, as I said, a complete mess. Documentation of the Tamagui made a significant progress for the last couple years, especially for the last year. But it's still sometimes is very unexpected. You're trying to find something, and you're not able to do it. There is a lot of discussions on the GitHub issues, on the Stack Overflow, somewhere in the Discord, and you're trying to understand what's the best approach for one of the issue which you have, and it's sometimes very hard. Still very hard. Or Tamagui said, you can do it like this, you can do it like this, and I'm just trying to understand how should I do it one way, and that's it. And the source code is somehow complex, so maybe I will get used to it somewhere in like several months, but I'm still not expected even from myself to be more familiar with the code. So it's, and again, Tamagui is still on the very active development. They have their commercial license and trying to implement the commercial component system, so something which extends the existing components. So they're trying to do their best here and there, but that means that something will not be implemented right now. Some issues may appear, and it's a bit hard. So yeah, I hope I can give you the understanding of how Tamagui works, what struggles can be with the Tamagui, what benefits you can get from Tamagui, and maybe you will at least try it as your pet project, and maybe you will go and try to apply to your project. Yeah, that's it for Tamagui. Thank you. Give me a second. Who is the next speaker? I am. Yeah. We have a time for the questions a bit. Yeah.
You said you don't like pain, but you still ended up with Tamagui, and from what I hear, you're in a lot of pain. Can you explain the concept?
Yeah. Well, one of the thing here in the project where I was hired, the VP of engineering wanted Tamagui and wanted to create. In my terms, we have 2 mobile applications, 1 web portal, CMS system, and we are creating the solid platform where we can reuse 1 component at the same time in the CMS for the marketing on our website, which looks the same as the mobile application, almost the same. And we have 2 mobile applications, same as like rider and driver. And we are using the components there, and it's actually working. In this kind of complex system, it's working. It's not something like we have just one mobile application. If you have 1 mobile application, or even 2 mobile applications, or you have 2 websites, web applications, there is no sense to use Tamagui. Tamagui is the thing which allows you to combine web and mobile and reuse as much components and logic as is possible. So this is actually the answer. Like I have a platform, and I'm building the platform.
Can I follow up on that? You mentioned a couple of times that don't use this, don't use that.
Again, this is my opinion. Yeah, from the experience. Maybe you can find a way to do it.
Oh no. This is a lead up to the question. So how would you, let's say on a scale from 0 to 10, how flexible Tamagui is? Like, from what I see, it requires a system, but we all know designers are very creative people.
Yeah.
And now if our font size is 4 and 5, and it's between 16 and 20 pixels, let's divide by 4. And now they have a button with 18 pixels, which does not play around with our design system.
That's a great
You said you go back to designers, which to me sounds like we're setting ourselves up in so strict and rigid manner that we are very hard to extend with Tamagui.
There is a complex thing which you need to find the same language with the design team. I'm experiencing that actually for the whole of my life, I never found a designer which is good in technical way, which understands. That means that, and since I'm leading the teams, I'm get used to sit with the designers and explain them how and what's to expect. But at the same time, you asked about the flexibility. This is the good example. If you have a kind of mess, or you have a plan to get rid of this mess, but you need to apply Tamagui right now, you can still use both at the same time. You can have the unified way in the same, for the same component, or for inside the different components. You can understand that, okay, so font sizes are not ready, so I can set them separately, but at the same time, like, you can get rid from the font size from here, leave it for here, and use for the unification only these 2 lines. So, and again, you asked me from 1 to 10 how flexible Tamagui. It's, for me, it's like 8. It's flexible, but you need to find a way how you understand this flexibility. Again, Tamagui has the developers of Tamagui has some specific vision, and there is a lot of discussions of like, why did they create in this way, and allows you to like even this size of this and the space and the tokens, but you are able to get rid of it and not use it, and everything will be fine, and you will use like small, large, and other styles. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Then we are good to go. Let's open the next presentation. So now let's talk about Nx. Nx is a kind of CI system which works sometimes above the other CI systems, and even more. In my context, I'm using Tamagui with Nx, and even more, I'm using with the bun. So like the cutting edge technologies which is so painful. But again, with my context, I already jumped on the project, which faced a lot of issues because they have everything, but it didn't work. Like, we have Nx, but it's not working as expected. We have Tamagui, but it's not working as expected. We have Bun, but it's not working as expected. So I'm trying to keep it, again, simple. We talked about Tamagui in isolation. I will talk about Nx in the isolation of just a simple React Native code and like Expo. Not trying to like have a cross configuration. So Nx is the new way how you're building your monorepo. We have before like Lerna, or we have Turbo. Well, it doesn't matter. This is kind of like the new shiny way. And it has some specific rules and again specific mindset how you can build something. And again, if you will try to force some things in a different way, it's not possible, or you need to get rid of the Nx. I already faced a couple times such kind of issues. You can create two types of repos with the Nx. The old school package base. So all your applications, all your libraries will be like a packages, and they will live inside one packages folder. They can connect inside each other, but most of the time it's a classic, so that means that you have independent packages. Maybe you have a sets of libraries which you're building and you're publishing on the NPM or your internal NPM, the servers. It's decentralized dependency management, so they're not connected. It's actually Nx tries to help you with the tooling, but it's not managing the monorepo. It's just like, okay, you can apply some helpers, some tools here for the building, for the optimization, for the publishing, but nothing more. The way it's where it's suitable. Like it's suitable for the teams when you have again little application libraries and you need to leave it independently and publish somewhere. It works well for legacy setups where you don't have any plans to have a unification or one entry point for your controlling system. And ideally work if all of the teams or several teams are working independently inside this packages and not having cross connections. How it will look like as the very usual packages. You have an application 1, you have application 2, you have a custom library. Packages inside those application or libraries are not managed by Nx. They're individually managed by the application. So in package 1, you can have the React Native, for example, with version like 70. In application 2, the React Native 74 or even 50, and the custom library will be dependent on React point 12, for example. But at the same time, for the general pack on the root level for the packages, you're using it for some kind of tooling and nothing more. And there is definitely an Nx JSON. Nx JSON is the configuration for the Nx itself. And the second type of the repo which you can use is the integrated repo. That's what I have. It's a fully centralized structure. So all applications, all libraries, they are the part of the same system. I have libraries, the shared components, which we use inside, as I explained, like a writer application, some kind of writer application or driver application, and I have a storybook application, which is general for the whole platform. And I have the web application, so it's in a CMS system. So everywhere, everything is interconnected. Centralized dependency management. So we have one React Native version for all our applications, one React version for all our application. Here, Nx allows you to have an exemptions, so you can say that, okay, this specific application may use different React or React Native version, and you can define it. But the general rule of thumb to have a unified version. It's a bit of can be painful for the migration, but at the same time it works good. You can create the lightweight libraries and operate it as a standalone packages, but it's a small piece of the whole system. So it's like a organism, like a live organism where everything is interconnected. Again, best way, if you have an interconnected system, use it, shared components, shared libraries, especially suitable for the teams who focused on the productivity, because you're reusing it, you can optimize it and use it everywhere in your products. And great if your product is dependent on each other, especially have it dependent on each other. As I described it before, I have a Tamagui on top of it, and everything is heavily dependent on Tamagui or components which we built on top of Tamagui. How it looks like? We have an application, so apps folder, and the libs folder, and it's a bit different concepts for the Nx. Packages JSON, you can define the packages specifically for have a package JSON for the specific applications or libraries, but they are working differently. In general, you have a package JSON file, and Nx understand during the build process that, oh, I don't need the package JSON inside the shared components. I have it on the top, and I'm just using the libraries which you are requiring inside your source code. You have an Nx JSON and workspace JSON, which threading for the different purposes. How to initialize the workspace? You can add it to your existing project, but I will focus right now specifically on the new solution. I tried to show the screenshots because when you're creating the workspace, there is tons of questions. Which type of the stack you're using? It's not about the React only. You can use like a poor TypeScript, JavaScript. It will be React, Vue, Angular, Node, God knows what. And it will ask you like, okay, so, and which type of framework you're using? Like, do you want to use Next.js or Remix or Expo or React Native? And there is like 5 or 6 questions, and depends on your answer. Nx will create the configuration, and you should know from the beginning configuration which they have a lot of wrappers. Each like React, React Native, Expo has the wrappers, for example, for the Metro, which helps Metro to build in the context of Nx. And sometimes it's so hard to find the issue in the code because you are not able to understand, again, where it comes from. As you can see here, how the name workspace, which stack you're using, which framework, which test runner, and with test runner you can use Cypress and Playwright. Which CI you're using, GitHub Actions, Circle CI. They have like a four actions and for CI system which they are supporting out of the box. And again, take a look on the Nx. Right now, the latest version is 20.3.2. So imagine how many major updates they have. This is still kind of fresh thing. It exists for the last like a couple of years, like several years. Not something which exists like for the 10 years. And they're in active development. And everything is like a plugin system. And I really like to show you the live demo, but when I started to build the presentation, take a look on the bottom, the last line, done in almost 400 seconds on the good internet, without a caching, definitely without a caching, but 6 minutes I waited just to build the basic. I don't know why it works like this. Sometimes it's 3 minutes, sometimes it's 5. But again, I'm not creating the new workspaces on the daily basis, but this is definitely not for the live presentation. And you need to pass a lot of configuration. Then you can start filling your workspace with the applications or with the libraries. And here you can use you can create Nx, install Nx globally or using it through the npx, but Nx generate and then use specific plugging. So React plugin, it should be installed before, actually. I missed this part. And then the name of your project, of the application. And when you're creating it, the React plugin has another configuration level where you're passing. Do you want to use a CSS styling? Sass, less, tailwind, style components, emotion, style GSX, or none of it. Imagine how many configuration is already, pre-configuration exists inside inside of Nx. Then, when I went to this pass, it starts failing. So, clean setup, like clean folder, everything is clean. I connected everything, and it says, so Nx Play, right? I'm not able to install it, and everything is failed, and definitely the application was not created. Shit happens. It's a very actively developing system. So what did I do? I actually skipped the playwright, and it works well. If you need the playwright, maybe you need to find the solution how to skip it, go to the GitHub issues. But my practice during the public talks is always to not hide the things which didn't work or worked not well. There is another way. So, like, this was the React and React Native code. This is how to create the Expo, like fully Expo solution where we have two applications. So the first of all, we need to create. I created the workspace with the name with Nuber, and I installed the Expo plugin for the Nx, and then started to generate the application for the driver, the application for the writer, and then the library with the shared components. Inside the packages JSON, as I said, you might have, you will have the packages JSON on the workspace level, and you might have on the app level or in the library level, and it will look like this. In the dependence, in the workspace levels, you're setting the exact versions which you will use. Again, as I said, you can create the exemptions, but on the app level, you're just passing like, okay, it's just use whatever we have in the workspace. You're still might setting them here if you need it for the peer dependencies, but in general, there is no specific version inside on the app level. Inside a TS config, TypeScript here is the boss, and that's the good thing. Inside a workspace level, on the workspace level, my library it was included already as a pass on the passes level, and they created when they're creating the application or the library, they have the template. So they're already passing. You already have the template with the source folder and the index.ts file there. It's an empty, but it's at the same time. On the app level, they are extending the tsconfig based JSON file from the root. So they're trying to apply the same TypeScript configuration for the application or for the library as you have on the root level. Same things. But at the same time, they have additional configuration for the compiler options, because like things are may be different. You can redefine it, you can change it. Metro configuration or Webpack configuration or Vite, everything will be different. But there is one general thing. You're using some custom configuration, you're adding it. This is out of the box. This is what Nx adding it. But the very key thing here is with Nx Metro wrapper for the config. You can extend it using like watch folders, extensions, debug, but without it, Metro will not be able to understand how the requirement system is working, where to find the libraries. Same as you. I'm running fast, but if you will wanted to use Storybook, you will need to mix it like with Nx Metro with the Storybook. Nx JSON this is the main configuration for the whole your workspace, and it's a huge file. It's very different. There is no sense to right now to focus on specific things. But for example, the plugins. So on one of the previous slides, we installed the Expo plugin for the Nx, and here it's registers the Expo plugin and says like inside the options you will have the targets and the specific target name. So this is the part actually for the when you will use it from the CLI. So like Nx start and the name of the specific application, and it will understand that there is a specific Expo command, so Expo start, or for the serve it will use the Expo I forgot the specific how to run the Expo web, but it will pass like a port, already predefined the port, or Expo submit. It knows that we need to use submit, and the configuration for the submit lives in a specific place. So there is a pre-configuration and you can where you can use it. How to run the project, the application, or the library. You can build it. So it depends. Nx serve. So again, on the previous page, serve. Nx serve and the name of the application. Nx run iOS and the name of the application. Or, for example, driver. So it doesn't matter what you like. If you will have the library, which will be published somewhere inside the npm, there is a predefined command with the name of the build, and you will say Nx build shared components, or I don't know, like crypto library, which you are using on your I passed too fast. And when you're running your project, I changed the colors for each application, so it's just a simple Expo on the web, on the iOS simulator. Same for the driver, same for the writer. So the same exact. It's luckily it's working out of the box without no issues. But from the first slides, it's working right now, but it may not work in the tomorrow. Let's extend and use our shared components. So we will go to the shared components library. We'll create the lib folder inside the source folder, and then create the button TS6. The code is very simple, nothing specific. Touchable opacity and the text inside, and to identify that this button actually comes from the component library, I made the background color as like some kind of bluish color. Then I need to go to the index.ts file, and remember, focus on this. Let's go back. Here, inside the passes, we are directly referencing to this index.ts file. So we're registering, actually, like exporting this button from this index.ts file. But I run it again, and what did I see? Cannot resolve number shared components. Why? I don't know. This is the code which I didn't touch. I didn't touch any configuration, nothing. I tried to spend some time, actually a day, try to fix it. Well, not a full-time day, but a day when I prepared this presentation. And I did have no luck. There is several solutions in the GitHub, like let's add the passes to the TypeScript. Let's configure the metro and add the watch folders there. And you're trying to understand, is it again Babel or TypeScript, or it's a problem with the metro? So what did I do? I deleted the whole workspace, recreated it the same way, and it started working. I don't have any explanation for this, but that means that something during the configuration, and as you are starting to see that Nx is quite a complex, especially in terms of plugin system. Some of the plugins are maintained by the Nx creator, but a lot of plugins are out of their space, and how they are maintained, you don't know. Now you need to run your project, and if we will run it, we will see the writer, and this is our button. So very simple, just it should work. Now, we have there's several things which I wanted to talk about, but we needed to speed up. Show information. How to show information about the workspaces. Nx has the specific command in the CLI, Nx show projects, and you are seeing all projects which you have. And it's very important, especially if you're thinking that you configured something well, but it's not working. Nx show will show you. You can filter out and say, okay, so I need only projects which support targets. Targets is some kind of like a commons, only which can serve. So our shared component library is not able to serve. There is no such thing as serve for the shared components. So driver or writer can do it. When I run the Nx show project writer, I will see all pre-existed. So this has come from pre-existed comments, as we saw. So you can build the expo, you can export it. It's pre-configured, and it opens the web page. And one other thing which is great is Nx graph. Since you have a complex CI system with a lot of dependencies, you need to understand which dependency or application or library depends on what. This is the very major feature for the Nx, and it builds the graph when you can see. Okay, so the writer is actually right now is the dependent on the shared components, but driver is not. Because I didn't add the code there. You can activate the how deep the analysis should be. You can composite the graph. You can group by folder. It's a very complex thing. This is an example from my project. Like I'm building it and I created the OTA or build release. I need to prepare. But one of the very important thing with the Nx, you're running this command, but the execution order will be from the bottom. First of all, I need to get test pass should be and pre-build it. Then I need to add the current fingerprint. Then I need compare fingerprints. Then I need prepare the production deploy with some specific comments. And then only the build or OTA build can successfully marked as done. This is the old like the version 1 of our project, which has like a build system, and we created the build Android, iOS, linting, test is depends on the ensure that project is ready. But again, this is the first thing which starts. It's pretty hard from the beginning to understand that you need to go look at the bottom. One of the issues for the Nx is not able to have the optional branches. So everything should be connected and have one final ball dot. You're not able to stop. I face this with the issue when I define with the expo. I try to identify, should I build and ship the native build or the OTA? And I try to create like a tree where I have the checks, like if it's the fingerprints were done only with the dependencies, that means that I need to create the build, the branch with the native build. If the only source code was touched and dependencies was not touched, the other branch. And it didn't work. And actually, Nx is not expecting you to have it. Target example. So as I said, this is the real example of the code. It is what it is, but we have some kind of our specific command. So commit fingerprint means I'm running the bash command, and I'm running our custom tool scripts, commit fingerprints, or I'm checking the deployment type, which I defined it on some step. I have the dependencies. So one task I'm explaining, like commit fingerprints depends on the ES post build. Build or ATA release depends on the prepare production deploy. So you're creating this kind of dependencies, and this is the ESA OTA command where I'm using not a shell script, I'm using the existed Nx command like update, and I'm passing the parameters like branch, platform, should it be interactive, should I wait, and it depends on the build. And this flag, this one means that all of my projects should be built before I'm able to run this one. Not only the ES pre-OTA in this specific project, but on everyone. And one of the greatest thing, which is almost the last thing which I wanted to demo, is Nx affected. This is the thing why was Nx created. When you're making your changes and you're committing it, you can understand with the Nx affected which application or library which was affected by this change, and you can send like a 100 commits, and the Nx will understand the difference, and you can see even the affected by the target list. So let's say like if I need to serve which project were affected by this commits, which I need to serve. One of the things which I'm using for my thing is I'm showing all projects. I'm getting the list of the projects which were affected. This is actually I'm creating just a list of the projects and separating it by comma, and then using the command of run many, and I'm running separately several projects. So here's will be like a driver, comma, rider, and run for the rider and for the driver build mobile command. Two last thing which I want to show you. Storybook. You can configure the storybook for any kind of the application which you have, application or the library, and it will create the specific, again, configuration and presettings. But storybook inside Nx configured and can be configured from out of the box for the applications. If you want it like I did, create one storybook for the whole workspace, you need to spend the time, and it will be painful. And if you will try to run writer storybook, again, I faced an issue that White.js plugin, it was not found. Right now, like a second ago, you created the whole configuration, but you were not able to install it. And I need to install it, what? I need to install it manually. And after this, storybook was successfully run. So yeah, as I said, can you have a storybook separately, like a application which is a separate storybook for it? Yes, you can. The release, this is the last thing. Release allows you to create the change log. If you have libraries which you need to publish to the NPM, it will publish it. It will increment the version, and it supports the conventional commit system, and so it will understand how you need to work. You're defining the projects, you're defining the project relations, and then if you're using the conventional system, you are passing like which type of commit it is, writer, driver, which type of the project, and actually it starts to automatically create like release. This one created automatically and updating the documentation. And you can play with it. You can use only release specific project. You can skip publishing. You can in my case, when we're using the OTA update for the Expo, there is no version bump, classical version bump. But I want at the same time to create the GitHub tags. And I'm creating like Nx release version, and I'm passing, I reading the ES runtime version, I'm passing it to the release, and then releasing the change log and passing it there. And then you will have the beautiful change logs will say like, okay, so John the Wilder, thank you John Wilder for this feature and this feature. So pros and cons. Nx is a very complex system. It builds the dependency graph which visualizes your project dependencies and helps you a lot. It has the very smart caching system. So Nx creating the folder like .nx folder where it caches everything hard. It supports incremental building. You can distribute your task execution, so you can parallel. You can actually I showed you the comment when you can identify which application was affected, which stage of the application was affected, and you can send it to the different kind of like machines and parallel. You can create the custom plugins. And it's honestly, it's very easy to integrate it inside the CIs, GitHub Actions, GitLab Actions, Jenkins. But at the same time, the context will be different. Nx context and GitHub Actions context is different. And if you will go from one GitHub action to another GitHub action, Nx context will be lost if you are using different actions, but it's the same in terms of steps, because Nx, as I said, Nx cache stores inside the Nx folder, and when you have multiple steps in one action, you have one code base. It will not be refetched, so you have one context, and you're using one Nx context. The pros, again, it's a pros. It's actually cons. I forgot to rename. Do not look at it. Guilty. The cons, learning curve. Same as like with Tamagui. It takes a lot of time to understand this Nx system. If you are not familiar with the Monorepo, it adds in with more complexity. You need to understand the next specific concept. As I said, for example, there is no way to have an optional branch if you want to run. I tried to do it. I tried to run Nx inside Nx through shell, and it didn't work. Nx losing the context and not passing it in somewhere deeper. Extremely large monorepos might have additional work to do, and it's really hard. And again, Nx enforce you to use their tooling, not something near their tooling. Migration to the newer versions is still a job. It's not very smooth. I migrated it several times. They have an Nx migrate command, but it still not covers all issues which have. And stability, still a lot of issues when you're reading about something. You're finding a lot of issues which continuously appear from the 2020, 2024, 2023, and you're asking yourself why, but it is what it is. Yep, that's it. I guess Nx actually looks much more complexer than Tamagui, but for my presentation it looks much easier. But believe me, it's not. Yeah, thank you very much for this. I think we don't have a time for questions here, right?
No, if you have questions, please join us downstairs. Two things before you guys go. One is on the Meetup website, on the React ATX webpage, Epic Web is having conferences, and Kent C. Dogs through Brooks. Brooks is the host for the Remix Meetup. He shared a discount code. So if you're interested in going, go to the React ATX Meetup webpage and look at that, I guess, post. There's a link there so you can take advantage of that 30% discount if you're heading to, I think, Utah. And the second thing is just look around you. If you see any trash, just pick it up, throw it in the drum, and maybe one or two volunteers, and I guess we'll see each other downstairs in 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hey, does anyone need a parking ticket? Good? Oh, yeah, yeah.
Это чуваки, которые я ушел там, ссорились, научились. Поэтому здесь заняло найти работу. Ну, у меня, я вел список, я брал где-то. Ну, став инженер, ну, веб, мобайл, шатавили. Поэтому как бы раз было. Ну, я было много собеседований, почти на связь выходить.